Family Guy is one of those shows that people somehow both love to dunk on and at times can look back on kind of fondly, despite the show still being around. But back when Family Guy first aired in 1999, the cartoon series was a welcome addition to the changing world of animation. Adult animation was really coming into its own around this time. The Simpsons had been airing for a decade at this point, and while now The Simpsons can be seen as kind of a weird, dark reflection of what it once was, aside from that rare piece of gold now and again, it was just a bit past what many people consider to be its golden age. It was still airing some absolute bangers. But this is where Family Guy got its start. From its beginning, the show wasn't afraid to push boundaries. Say what you want about the show, but it's a definitive step forward from The Simpsons in terms of boundary pushing, at least for where TV was at that point. It's actually kind of similar to The Simpsons in that regard. It's easy to forget just how much of a cultural juggernaut the show, especially Bart Simpson, was. And a lot of people around that time thought that The Simpsons was actively destroying traditional family values in the US.
We are going to keep on trying to strengthen the American family to make American families a lot more like the Waltons and a lot less like the Simpsons.
Even though the show was really just kind of a mirror making America look back at itself. And out of the ensuing quote-unquote controversy, a new Titan was born, and then cancelled in 2002. Yeah, if you didn't know, Family Guy was cancelled after 3 seasons. That's where American Dad comes into the picture, the next show that Seth MacFarlane pitched. More on that show in a bit. Family Guy actually ended up being saved because of Adult Swim reruns in DVD sales. And ever since its return, Family Guy has been pretty huge. But becoming as big as it did came with its own problems. This is when the hate for the show really started to ramp up. Because of the show's success with DVD sales and reruns, it only made sense that the new episodes would get a good bit more exposure. So I kind of want to break up the hate the show gets into a few different categories, starting with hate from other creators. It wasn't just fans that had some not so nice things to say about the show. Even fellow TV show creators and animators have criticized the show. For starters, Ken Tucker, a prominent TV critic for Entertainment Weekly, has often shared his dislike of Family Guy. He called the sitcom anti-Semitic and was right to say the series had a bit of a knack for pushing boundaries. Similarly, fellow animators like South Park's creators Trey Parker and Matt Stone have been anything but quiet concerning the rival show. Since the early 2000s, both shows have had a long-running beef. It might be worth noting that both shows center around average suburban families that feature crude jokes and profanity. The only difference is in their style of humor and the ways that they write. South Park has been described as a satirical piece that often calls to question the hypocrisy of different topics such as politics and corrupt figureheads, often through the lens of pop culture. Meanwhile, Family Guy's humor is drawn from gimmicks, gags, and lampooning American pop culture. But a pretty big part of why Parker and Stone hate Family Guy is because their shows have often been grouped and compared to each other. Parker and Stone have even explicitly stated they're not fans of Family Guy because they just don't respect it in terms of writing. Trey Parker has even gone on record to say, "We've seen Family Guy, and we do hate it." South Park's creators have even gone on to make fun of the rival show in their own series. In 2006, South Park made a 2-part episode, Cartoon Wars, just to make fun of Family Guy. The Part 1 episode of Cartoon Wars made fun of Family Guy writers, poking at them, saying they were just a team of manatees who randomly selected beach balls to curate storylines and jokes. At first, Family Guy writers clapped back at South Park in their DVD commentaries, where they called their own gags manatee jokes. But they also made a mocking video of South Park in their 2009 episode, Spies Reminiscent of Us, in a 2009 episode. They aren't the only people to have stuff to say about Family Guy. In fact, another popular animation series was in support of South Park's ripping on Family Guy. That, of course, being The Simpsons, the series that originally made a show like Family Guy even possible. Family Guy has long been heavily criticized for being too similar to The Simpsons. It was somewhat evident. With both shows being about an average working class family, both have dim-witted fathers, 3 children, and fairly similar wives. At least in the beginning. This is something that both shows have kind of acknowledged at several points throughout their runs. But while The Simpsons was originally there to hold up a mirror to the American public, Family Guy seemed more like they were smacking that mirror off of the public's face. However, MacFarlane and Simpsons creator Matt Groening have said that there's no serious feud between the two of them or their shows. But interestingly, during an interview, South Park's creators did say they actually had Simpsons writers who reached out and agreed, and King of the Hill writers saying how they were doing God's work by ripping into Family Guy. But what they're saying really comes down to viewing the show's comedic styling as lazy, that they're actively taking the easy way out with their writing and cutaways. And this South Park special, I think, was kind of the gateway to more people who are fans of both shows to start to take sides. It normalized the opinion that Family Guy's writing was lazy and that the series itself was kind of directionless. Speaking of which, cutaway gags and offensive humor. The animated series is extremely hated for its cutaway gags. This is partly because the jokes that receive the most controversy are often found in said cutaways. For instance, in the episode The Cleveland Loretta Quagmire, Peter and a barbershop quartet sing and dance around the bed of a man with late-stage AIDS. This cutaway angered so many viewers that it resulted in protests led by several AIDS service organizations. But in the same vein, a lot of people remember that bit kind of fondly. It's actually kind of interesting seeing that the same reasons the show is so hated are the same reasons that so many love it. No one's really safe when it comes to Family Guy, aside from Frank Sinatra, both senior and junior, and Conway Twitty. That's why the show's had multiple formal FCC complaints filed against it by the Parents Television Council, a conservative nonprofit watchdog group. Since its premiere, the PTC has attacked the series, calling it the worst TV show of the week on at least 40 occasions, typically citing the show's profanity, animated nudity, and violence. The PC has also listed the show's, quote, disgusting sex jokes, crass Holocaust humor, cruel impersonations of deaf people, and loads of bleeped profanity as the reason for the show being so hated. Complacency. Let's talk about what some fans and some, well, not fans have said about the actual show's quality. From the start, the series has been under heavy gunfire, but they haven't exactly made it easy on themselves with the quality kind of waning. Many people have complained that the cutaway formula they're known for grew old incredibly fast, and in all honesty, seemingly became something of a crutch for the series. I mean, since the show's premiere, the material hasn't really changed, it's remained stagnant, and really hasn't tried to push any boundaries within the show itself. They were hated for always choosing the lowest common denominator humor, because their jokes were always at the expense of people who couldn't really fire back, punching down instead of punching up. After a while, these things just get old. Let's slightly pivot into Family Guy's tendency to hide behind its actual medium and use that as a shield to reflect valid criticisms that come through, particularly how the show has gotten away with so many offensive things just because it's an animation and is supposedly fiction. No doubt Family Guy is arguably worse than many celebrities who've gotten cancelled for their shows. But just because it's fictional, it gets away with ballsy, crude humor. It likes to hide behind the idea that, since this character isn't real and is supposed to be dumb, they can get away with whatever. For an example of how to do this better, simply look at It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. These characters are all bad people. They often say and do ridiculous and offensive things, but the idea behind the character doing these things isn't purely for shock value. It's much more in the vein of satire. We know that the characters are bad, and we see them routinely get punished for their generally terrible actions in one way or another. Despite its offensive jokes and cutaways, it still has more fans than critics. Obviously, with an IMDb score of 8.2, there are many who still watch the show and enjoy its dark and offensive jokes. I mean, numbers don't lie, people are still actively tuning in, though maybe they're just hate watching it. As a matter of fact, Michael Torn, president of Fox Entertainment, has said that Family Guy and Bob's Burgers are key pillars of our network's success. So it's clear that a huge number of people still watch and love Family Guy. This has made critics hate it even more, because it's kind of hard to wrap your mind around someone liking something so crude, vulgar, and, to be perfectly honest, lazy. Over the years, Family Guy has been compared to shows that are similar, but have found a way to do things better. One of Seth MacFarlane's own shows being a prime example. MacFarlane created American Dad! During the short stint where Family Guy was cancelled, and it really seems like Seth took a pretty hard look at what worked and what didn't with Family Guy. The animation styles are essentially the same, and the titles indicate that the shows have similar storylines, but American Dad kind of manages to do just about everything that Family Guy does, but better. For one, the humor on American Dad is probably more intelligent. It's constructed with tact and elegance compared to the crude and almost tasteless humor on Family Guy. American Dad is clearly more respectful of its characters. On the contrary, in Family Guy, characters like Meg and Lois are often treated poorly, which is hurtfully signifying prejudice towards women. While Family Guy is known for its cruel and derogatory humor, American Dad is the opposite. Unlike American Dad that isn't afraid to try something new within the show itself, Family Guy has long since stopped showing originality or experimental concepts. Now they're pretty much stagnant and offer the same concepts that they've used, but with a little variation. Although Family Guy has been on longer than American Dad, the latter has only gotten better over the years, while Family Guy has gotten worse. Also, American Dad is still on. That's kinda wild, right? Thanks, TBS. With Family Guy often compared and accused of plagiarizing The Simpsons, it's still an arguable fact that The Simpsons is a much better show that has aged significantly better. Compared to Family Guy, The Simpsons has more classic episodes and gags. Steamed hams is still a national treasure. I don't care if it's a several-year-old meme at this point. Fight me. So, strangely, Family Guy has managed to reach that special Simpsons level where it's become so massive that it's sort of become the very thing it was mocking in the beginning. And it's still so widely watched and culturally relevant that no executive would dare cancel at this point. What executive wants to be known as the person who canceled Family Guy or The Simpsons? What about you? What are your thoughts on Family Guy? Comment that down below. Follow me on Twitter at 10kbill to stay up to date on everything I'm working on. Like this video if you liked it, dislike it I guess if you didn't. Support us on our Patreon if you like this content and want to see more like it. And of course, make sure you subscribe for all your entertainment related content.